In the beginning, there was only the question. A spark in the void, a whisper on the edge of silence, a defiance older than time itself. Before Mars turned red with rebellion, before Luna cast its laws in stone, before humanity touched the stars with trembling hands, we asked the question, what if we could live forever? And when the answer came, it was beautiful and terrifying. This is the story of that answer, and the war it became. Before we called them immortals, there was only the question. Before the cities on Mars rose red against the black, before Luna broke from Earth's shadow, before the cradle of humanity fell silent in its pride, there was a man, Jason Maximus, brilliant, restless, and Paige Johnson, whose laughter could still crack the weight of failure. Buried beneath the Earth's crust, in a lab forgotten by politics and parliaments, they searched. Days bled into nights. Hope became habit. Failure became familiar. Jason hunched over a console, hands trembling slightly with fatigue. Another reading, another collapse, another whispered curse lost in the whir of machines. Paige slipped inside, carrying a battered takeout container. She set it beside Jason without a word, the dance of exhausted allies. They did not need words anymore. Night fell. Monitors flickered, error messages bled red against sterile glass. Apoptotic cascade detected. Mitochondrial collapse. Jason rose hours later, peeling off his jacket and laying it gently over Paige's sleeping form, brushing a fingertip across her slumped shoulder. Days looped into days. Jason slammed his palm into a console but said nothing. Still, they searched. Jason, seated with a datasheet hovering in front of him, rubbed his temples. Across the room, Paige was bent over a centrifuge, her face lit by the faint green glow of a vial. Paige teased, amusement layered over exhaustion. "You ever wonder if this is what insanity looks like?" Jason said thoughtfully, "I thought insanity was doing the same thing and expecting different results." Paige murmured with dry humor, "Then we're both clinically obsessed." Jason murmured with dry humor, "Obsessed builds bridges. Obsessed carves moons." A long silence stretched between them, broken only by the faint hum of the centrifuge. Paige murmured with dry humor, "Obsessed forgets to shower." Jason smiled faintly but didn't look up. He tapped the edge of his mug. Empty. Again. Paige lifted a small, stabilized vial and walked to the console. Paige said thoughtfully, "Okay. One last run tonight, using that Io-Titan fusion ratio I've been tweaking, just a trace. I want to see if it stabilizes the RNA relay." Jason said, "You're still on that?" Paige said, "What's one more failed model among hundreds?" She injected the blend into the chamber. The fetus floated silently in its cylinder. For a moment, nothing happened. Jason sighed. Paige stared at the telemetry. As if pulled upward by invisible threads of disbelief, Jason murmured, breath caught in his throat, "No." Paige's voice, hesitant and wary, floated in after him. "Jason?" Behind the glass, the fetus's damaged liver tissue began rebuilding, slowly, deliberately, beautifully. Jason stepped forward like he was walking through water, every motion reluctant to disrupt the miracle unfolding before them. His eyes locked onto the screens. His voice cracked under the weight of awe. It's holding. Paige, it's holding." Paige's breath hitched. She barely whispered, "That's not possible." Jason answered, not turning away from the glow, "That's evolution." Paige stepped closer, eyes scanning the metrics, her pulse thundering in her ears. You said the system couldn't handle organ regrowth past 14 minutes. Jason's voice was no longer tired. It was reborn. That was before tonight. A silence stretched, dense, electric. Then Paige blinked and let the impossible settle on her shoulders. Her voice wavered between shock and exhilaration. Jason, I think I just made you immortal. The air thickened. Time slowed. Jason looked at her. Not glanced. Looked, truly. For the first time in endless weeks, he smiled. He said with reverence, "No, Paige. We just touched the future." They held each other's gaze, breathing the same breath. The weight of 1,000 hours suspended in the soft hum of life forming behind them. And then, gently, Paige whispered, "Eureka." She whispered it into his mouth as their lips met, slow, tender, tired, but full of wonder and promise. For a moment, time itself stopped. When they broke apart, Paige smirked and brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. With a coy edge, she said, "You know I need a fresh sample now, right?" Jason blinked halfway into another thought. Sample of what? Oh dear. The faint crackle of a fire filled the stone-walled living room. Before them, the hollow tube hovered, casting flickering headlines into the mist. Paige leaned back and cocked her head, bemused. Okay. Serious question. Why is it still called a tube? There's no tube. Giuseppe answered with a shrug and a smirk. The holotube? It's tradition. Humans never let go of a good nickname, even after the tech evolves. Paige narrowed her eyes, playfully accusatory. Tradition? You sound ancient. You sure you're not the alien here, Giuseppe? Jason chimed in from the couch. Actually, I have a hard time believing you've never heard of the boob tube. Paige groaned. I walked right into that one. Giuseppe grinned. You sprinted. Their laughter bounced off the stone walls, real laughter. Warm and stubborn, defiant against the gathering dark. Then Giuseppe leaned forward, suddenly grave. They won't just argue, Jay. They'll come for you. For her. For all of us. Jason's tone shifted, low and firm. Change always frightens the ones who fear being left behind. Paige looked toward the fire. Her voice was barely audible. Maybe we moved too fast. Jason shook his head. Or maybe they never moved at all. Giuseppe stood, his silhouette framed by the hearth. He no longer looked like a friend, but like a sentinel. His presence filled the room like a drawn blade. When he spoke, his words were edged in steel. I've always been in awe of your brilliance. Jason interrupted with a nervous chuckle, trying to diffuse the weight in the room. Come on, G. You're the one who survived the council's snake pit, not me. Giuseppe didn't flinch. He continued, eyes locked. The both of you are doing something that will change how we see ourselves. The very nature of what it means to be human is now in question. Soon, parents will have to explain to their children that they may never die, and for those who never played that part of their imagination, it'll terrify them to their very core. He turned toward the fire. We need to have a defense ready. For their fear. Jason and Paige exchanged a heavy look, but said nothing. Giuseppe exhaled, lifting his bourbon glass. 2 fingers, dry. Always his signature. With a smirk to mask his sorrow, he said, I better get going before my wife starts thinking we're having a threesome. Paige laughed, half horrified. OMG, get out of here, you crazy ape, and remind that sexy wife of yours we're still having lunch tomorrow at the Palace downtown. Jason clapped Giuseppe on the shoulder. The three shared a fragile, fleeting warmth. Outside, the storm gathered its strength.